Welcome to the Carve, a Monster Hunter podcast where you can bone up on Monster Hunter. I am your host, SBJ. I don't know why I did those so fast, but I got Micah here, co-hosting Micah.
Bone up, hunters. It's
A
Micah.
joke. Probably not going to get old. So we are back. This is episode 2 of the Carve, a podcast where we talk about Monster Hunter, where we are looking forward to both Monster Hunter Double Cross and Monster Hunter World. World or Worlds?
Worlds.
I don't know. I like putting S on things.
Yeah.
Double crosses.
Yep.
So our last episode, we talked about our thoughts on the E3 debut. Episode before that, we talked about just who we were, where we came from, our love of Monster Hunter. I don't think we said this last episode. I just want to preference this just for new listeners. If you're joining us, thank you so much. But we are not here to talk about high-level skill Monster Hunter playing.
That's right. We're here to bridge the gap.
Bridge what gap? The gap.
The gap. We're here to bring you all the hot new styles from the gap and also build a bridge.
These sound like a lot of buzzwords.
Yep.
So we said this in episode 0, but we have a couple goals for the show. 3 goals primarily. First goal, pretty easy one. Think it's achievable. We're on episode 2, so we're already got that ball rolling, but it's to create a weekly Monster Hunter podcast.
Correct.
There have been Monster Hunter podcasts in the past, whether that's YouTube or iTunes, mostly YouTube. We're here to do this, and a lot of those podcasts that have existed, that still may exist, that might start back up when, Double Cross hits or Worlds hits, they're primarily YouTube focused. So there's video to go with that. We're really trying to strive for an audio-only show.
You don't want to look at us. You might want to hear us, maybe, but you don't want to look at us.
Decent voices to match some decent faces. Second goal was to create a podcast that was focused on the positives of Monster Hunter. And in an instance where we are being negative, negative's probably not the right word. Critical of the series, it's because we want to see the series succeed.
Correct.
So I think that's important.
We got a little bit critical last episode.
We did?
Yeah, a little bit. We talked about, the graphical restrictions and mostly the restrictions that the 3DS put on the series.
Yes. And the sticks.
Oh,
I need 2 sticks.
Gotta have the sticks.
And then the third point was to help new players of the series or non-veteran players understand and enjoy Monster Hunter to the fullest.
We're here to bridge the casual gap.
It's funny because most of my time in Monster Hunter is helping new players play and never actually focusing on my character. So I'll sit at Hunter rank 4 forever.
Yeah.
Because I'm just helping people get to rank 1 through 4 and then starting over again and helping somebody else get to 1 through 4.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden they're so down the rabbit hole and so far playing that they've moved on to G rank and they've left me in the dust. Hey, well, I got this new player, so all right, here we go, 1 through 4. Let me tell you about the Great Jaggy.
You're like the wise old hunter that's stuck in the beginning area.
Yeah.
That is the tutorial for everybody.
The living, breathing tutorial for new players. So we're here to talk about the Ancient Forest gameplay video. So a little bit behind the curtain, we recorded episode 1 and episode 2 pretty closely together.
Yeah.
And I think our goal of episode 1 was to talk both about E3 and this gameplay video. But right now, I think the 30 minutes is kind of what we're feeling for these episodes. And I'm sure we'll move up to 45 minutes or an hour once we start playing.
We have lots to talk about.
Yeah.
Lots of experiences to share.
So we're going to talk about the Ancient Forest gameplay. I've seen this video 3 or 4 times. I know, Micah, you saw this video on top of seeing YouTubers talk about the Japanese video.
I watched the Japanese stream for this, basically, the Ancient Forest area. And then I watched video of people who understood it better than I did, kind of critiquing it and pointing out things that I missed because I didn't understand totally what was going on. But this is the English version of all of that with a voiceover that helps us better understand exactly what's happening, exactly what things are, and the progression and some of the new features that we've seen, but haven't had like English confirmation of, I guess.
This video is the first that we've seen in English.
Yes.
Of a successful hunt.
Yes.
22 minutes.
Start to finish.
I was so afraid to watch this video, not because I wasn't going to enjoy it, but because I was going to watch somebody play Monster Hunter correctly.
Yeah.
And I feel like when I'm playing Monster Hunter a lot, it's like, oh, I missed that hammer swing. Oh, yep, totally whiffed that hammer swing. And the player who was playing, and I'm not saying they're bad, like, I would imagine unless you're a top 2% pro player, I feel like everyone misses every now and then.
Oh, definitely.
So, but to see this guy miss a bunch, I was like, oh, thank God. Maybe I'm actually not that bad.
I'm not alone.
Yeah, I'm not alone in thinking I'm the one person missing every single swing.
I think we both felt that relief.
Tell me your thoughts. It opens with voice acting to you, which I think is the first in the series of somebody's mouth moving and somebody verbally talking to you out loud. Whereas in the past, it was just, hey, read this bunch of text.
I mean, there have been, if I'm remembering correctly, there have been some cutscenes that have had a little bit of voice acting, but nothing like a full-fledged tutorial of do this and do that, and you're doing great. Now you need to hit the thing. Usually it's the veteran hunter. It's always kind of been the like old guy it's just dialogue boxes, and he's like, okay, you got this, now put it in the delivery box. Good job, hunter.
Me, of course, hitting A over and over, skipping everything,
yeah,
and then going, how do I end this quest?
I don't know what I'm doing.
I think the very first time I played Monster Hunter, I didn't notice that there was a blue and a red box.
And you were trying to dump into the delivery, or you were trying to dump into the starting box?
Yeah. I was like, I keep going to the box. There's no option.
That's pretty good.
Whew. This is a long time ago. So going back to the beginning, we're not pro players.
We miss some swings. Sometimes we try to deliver into the pickup. It's okay. We've all been there.
So in this video, the hunter is hunting good old Angie.
Good old Angie.
Anjanath.
Which is just like the tutorial monster at this point, right? Like, probably not actually the tutorial monster, but everything we've seen so far has been that's the tutorial.
Yeah, this is like the monster they've kind of been showing off, which I think is a little strange because I've heard other people, and I tend to agree with them, that this monster's a little bland looking.
Yeah.
Compared to other monsters.
I mean, it's dinosaur-like.
When it enrages, area, it looks way cooler because it has the wings. It has the
snout pops up.
Yeah, we were talking about this when we were watching it together. Angie, boy or girl, who knows? They could be the second monster because it seems like the lizard thing is a little weaker.
Yeah.
And that seems more like the first monster.
Well, they did in the gameplay trailer at E3 too. Throughout this, anytime they show any gameplay footage, they're seeming to make it very clear that there's monster hierarchy in the world. And they make it really clear that at least in the ancient forest, that hierarchy is Aptonoth, Great Jagras, Anjanath, and then I don't know if that's Rathalos.
Yeah. That seems to be the...
I don't know if that was spoilery for... but I think everybody at this point has seen the Rathalos.
Well, that was shown during E3 too.
Yeah.
There's so many great things in this trailer that made me even more excited for the game.
Yeah.
I guess we talk about the Scoutflies being the new addition of actually tracking the monster and finding out where it's going to be.
Yeah, sure. That, to me, is way more exciting than any tracking that we've ever done in any Monster Hunter game.
Well, in the past, it was 4 people. Hey, I'm going to run this way, you run that way, you run this way.
Yeah.
And I think that's fine.
Let's just go find it. That's the...
But I also fell into habits in, like, for you of, okay, the monster always starts in Area 5.
Yeah.
Just go to Area 5, no more spreading out.
Yep.
Where, if we were actual hunters... the spreading out is cool.
Yeah.
of like, oh, okay, I found it over here. But it seemed like in past Monster Hunter games, it was like, okay, you're always here. You're always here.
Split up, and then you corner it and converge.
Mm-hmm. I hope that with the Scoutflies, and I hope because we're in the 5th generation of Monster Hunter, that we do get some variety of, okay, now he's here, now he's here.
Yeah.
I just hope that they're not always in the same spot.
I mean, I obviously can't say for sure, but I feel like, especially with the addition of, or the confirmation at least that we have of, you will start from different base camp areas throughout the game, regardless of whether or not it's the same location, that there are multiple base camps in, for example, the Ancient Forest, and you can start at multiple different base camps. I would hope then that means that there are multiple starting points for the monster, so that everything is randomized enough that you really have to adapt.
Right. You want it to feel like a fresh new hunt every time.
Right.
Even if it's the same monster.
Yeah.
A lot of new players, and again, this is not speaking to everyone, but not a lot of new players are very surprised of, oh, I have to kill that monster again to get the full set, or, oh, I have to kill them 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
I feel like I gravitate to games like that.
Yeah, it's very much like raids, or you go for drops. And
yeah, like Destiny, you do the same strikes or raids over. Like Final Fantasy, you do the same Final Fantasy 14, sorry. You do the same raids, trials, dungeons over and over because you're going for drops, loot.
Right. And if you don't get those drops, then you do it again until you get them.
But doing the same content again, like in Final Fantasy 14 or like Destiny, or in this case, Monster Hunter, you want it to be enjoyable every single time. And I think Monster Hunter does a good job of making hunting a monster enjoyable every single time.
Yeah.
So adding different things to the environment, having a monster show up this time, but not having a monster show up this time. We see near the end of the gameplay video of the Rathalos coming down and attacking Angie. One would assume, based on past Monster Hunter games, that doesn't happen every time.
I mean, and you said this when we were watching it together, you said, it seems like there are a lot of scripted things that are happening, and I'm hoping that it's just because this is a demo, and that it won't be as scripted during the actual gameplay. I hope that it's not too, but I think it depends on where you are on the map, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're in closer proximity to the Rathalos, then it will trigger that. But if you're across the map from it, then it's like you could be on the other side of the map with the Anjanath for the entire duration of the hunt and never have that interaction.
If I knew that, hey, if the Anjanath got up to the Rathalos nest, that the Rathalos always comes.
Yeah.
Like, that just kind of feels, not gaming the system, but if it's a living, breathing Monster Hunter world, who's to say Rathalos isn't, getting food or, hitting up the Mickey D's, doesn't have time to tell you to get out of its nest.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, whenever the Rathalos shows up, it's definitely not there for you. It's there for the Anjanath.
So I'd be curious if you went up there without the Anjanath.
I believe,
see if Rathalos comes and says, hey, get out of my nest.
I believe at some point they said, I think this was during the Japanese stream, there was either confirmation or like slight confirmation that you can actively like coexist with monsters in the world without them attacking you until you show yourself as a threat to them. So as an example, during the Japanese stream, once they tracked the Anjanath, they stood around it. The Anjanath knew that they were there, and they just walked around it and in front of it, and we're just there with it, and the Anjanath didn't do anything to them. It wasn't until that they fired like the hand cannons, whatever the like sparkle ammo is. It wasn't until they fired that in the Anjanath's face then that the Anjanath then said, "Oh, this is a threat. I need to attack this thing." And they said that they'll coexist with things in the world until they perceive those things as a threat.
I'm assuming that doesn't apply to all monsters.
Right.
I'm sure there's like a Baratheon. No, that's not what it's called.
Barioth? Yeah.
Thinking Game of Thrones for some reason. I'm sure there's like one of those that they get mad instantly.
Yeah, I'm sure that there is. I mean, maybe with the Rathalos, it's that you can be in their nest, and as long as you're not doing anything to them because you're so small, they don't care about you.
I don't know any birds that. Well, it's not really a bird, but I'm thinking of a nest. I don't know any birds that are like, "Hey, it's okay, just chill here."
That's true. I mean, you're so small though. Maybe you're like a bug to the Rathalos, and it's like, I don't care. What are you gonna do to me? Everything that I've seen for the Rathalos in the gameplay so far has been that it shows up when you're fighting the Anjanath, and it shows up initially to fight the Anjanath because it's prey to the Rathalos.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually kind of like the idea that you could. I mean, I don't know even necessarily that I would call it gaming the system, but that you could, as part of your strategy for a hunt for a Rathalos, know that you're going to guide the Anjanath to an area close to the Rathalos nest to draw the Rathalos out. And that's part of your hunt for the Rathalos. Because I think almost every time I've seen the gameplay, the Rathalos has chased the Anjanath off.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a Rathalos fight. Except for, I think, the American game, Ancient Forest.
Well, the American Ancient Forest, the one we're talking about, is...
They just focus on the Anjanath, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the damage numbers being shown? So there's still no monster health, which I think is very important to Monster Hunter.
Yeah.
They're showing damage numbers. What are your thoughts on that? Because we see the berries drop and the rocks drop. We see the sword damage. We see the bow gun damage.
Initially, I don't think that's something that I totally would care about. I know that there are plenty of people that absolutely do care about that. Personally, right now, I don't think I would care. I think the more that I play it, though, I probably would start to care.
I play a lot of Final Fantasy XIV.
Yeah.
And they show damage numbers a lot.
Ton of damage numbers. Do you care about them?
I don't notice them ever.
Okay. I don't think my experiences
but I also play
with that
healer,
either.
So...
Yeah.
But I see healing too of like, oh, okay, that spell healed for 1,108. Okay, that spell healed for 1,200 damage. But I'm rarely noticing that just because in my head I know, okay, this spell will heal at least 20% of their bar. This spell will heal half their bar.
Yeah.
So I just happen to know that
right
just by playing the game a lot.
And I think when I've noticed numbers in games for that, like in Final Fantasy XIV or in, I don't know, any other MMO or whatever, when those numbers are happening, it's more that I'm noticing the number of numbers there are. So, like, if it's a 2-digit number, it's not, I don't care about it as much, or I'm probably not going to keep doing that. But if it's a 4-digit number, then I know that that's what I need to be doing.
I made a book about Monster Hunter that it had all the monsters in it, and then it had, here are their weaknesses, here's what you should bring on a hunt, here is and here's where you should attack it based on what weapon you have.
Yeah.
And a lot of those monsters, it was almost like if you have a sword or a blade, attack the tail.
Yeah.
And if you had dual blades, like attack the stomach. And if you had a hammer, attack the head.
Yeah.
As a hammer user, I can't chop a tail.
Right.
As a sword user, you can't...
I'm not smashing...
You can't stun a monster.
Base armor off or...
I think the switch sword can stun.
Yeah. But even like drops too, like a Barioth, like you're smashing...
You're breaking his crest.
Off,
you're breaking his crest on his face.
Yeah.
So if, for anything, the numbers at least signify that, I think that's a big plus. I'm a sword... let's just say I'm a sword user... I hit his stomach with my sword, it does 50 damage. I hit his head, it does 20 damage. I hit his tail, it does 60 damage. So now I know as a player, without needing a book or an online guide, I know that I've done this fight before, I've seen the numbers once or twice, I know in the back of my head, okay, attack the tail, then attack the stomach.
Yeah.
And as a hammer user, I can visually see, everyone tells me to attack the head, I guess I'm attacking the head. But now I know for sure, I don't need that number to tell me how much damage I'm doing. I just need it in the sense of, okay, this is working or this isn't working.
And that's why I say, like, now I don't really care about the numbers. Mostly because I'm caring about, like, many other things that I'm like trying to absorb everything.
I'm caring about my stamina.
But once I'm in the thick of it and I'm doing hunts, 10 times a night or whatever, I'm sure then I'll care more about having those numbers, and I'll be grateful that I have access to those numbers on my screen.
It would also be nice, and I think they did show it, where, again, it's not really the number that matters, it's more of how it's being displayed. So, for example, if you're doing 14 or 15 damage, it's in like a white font.
Yeah.
But then if you do like a critical hit, it's like a yellow font and it's slightly bigger.
Similar to Destiny, where when you're doing crits, it's like bigger and yellow.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't really care about the number, but I do know that I'm doing critical hits over and over.
Yeah.
So keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah. I think that's the way to go, because that's for Destiny, for me, I'm not a hardcore Destiny player, but I do know just from visual cues when I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing to the right spot on a boss. It's I just keep doing that.
Right.
I just keep doing whatever gives me yellow numbers.
Totally. So a thing I noticed and I got really excited for is we paused it on the map screen. So there are no loading screens, but between the areas of the map, there are still areas of the map. So I could say, hey, Anjanath is in 5.
Yeah.
Or Rathios is in 2.
Yeah.
So it's very...
You pronounced both of those wrong.
Good.
But
Good.
keeping it up.
If there's anything I'm going to do consistently, it's say monsters' names wrong. But on the map, you could see the traps that were environmental.
Yeah.
Like this.
We think, at least. Like, we think that's what they are. The icons are for.
Right. This was the beginning of the hunt, so I can't imagine that this was when he pulls it up right after he talks to the first Hunter Howdy chick.
Hunter Howdy chick. That's the name from now on.
So you could see like little flower icons in one region. You could see what looked like to be a shock trap in another region. There was these little frog icons in another region. And then there were two-way arrows, like a one-way street arrow, except there was an arrow on the other side.
Yeah.
And those were scattered around to signify, it looks like, oh, you can climb up here, or you can jump down here.
Yeah.
So overall, the map just looks extremely useful besides just the actual areas.
Right. It looks like what a map should be.
Right. Like, hey, is there a trap in Area 4? Yes, it's still there. And I'm sure that symbol will disappear once the trap has been used or consumed in some way.
I'm curious how much of what you can see on the map is available to you right away. Like, everything is available right now because it's a tutorial, but I wonder if you will be able to see everything as soon as you go to a hunt, regardless of whether or not you've been to that area before.
Well, it's also, once you hit a certain hunter rank, you don't even get a map when you start.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
I guess we haven't seen the blue box because the character at the beginning didn't go to the blue box to get the map, the potions, and the raw meat.
But they do go at some point to their camp. I just don't... I wasn't paying attention to see if there was a box there or not.
This isn't the first Monster Hunter where we didn't have monster hunters. We didn't have monsters fight. Like, they've fought in the past, have they not?
Yes, I believe so.
Well, you see a Rathian eat the herbivores to get its health back in 3U and 4U and everything.
Yep.
But do they not attack each other?
I don't know if they'll actively do it, but if they hit each other, then they will attack in previous games. But this is the first time I think we've ever seen like an actual monster hierarchy or like a food chain.
We do see... I had to look this up. We do see the blocks. We do see the box outside the tent when the hunter returns,
right,
and switches gear. So this is the first Monster Hunter game that you can switch weapons and gear mid-hunt.
Yes, you can go back to your tent and just swap stuff out.
Some people really like that. Some people didn't. I've always been under the impression, especially when I tell new players, pick a weapon and stick to it.
Yeah.
Because even after, 50 plus hours, you're probably still not a master of that weapon.
Right.
Not only that, is when you're hunting these monsters, you're using those materials to upgrade your weapon.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you have access to, like, oh, I have a really strong hammer, I want to switch to a greatsword. Oh, wait, it's not leveled up because I used all my materials for a hammer.
Yeah.
So I have to do this hunt over and over, then power up that weapon, then use it. It's not very convenient unless you play a lot. So my question is, how do you feel about switching gear on the fly? Because if you were to ask me, I would say, I'm just going to stick with my hammer the entire hunt.
Personally, I probably would stick with one weapon, mostly because I have a very one-track mind when it comes to stuff like that. But in the context of how the multiplayer in Monster Hunter World exists, I think it makes sense that that's a possibility, because you can be on a solo hunt doing whatever it is that you're doing, and if you call for help and 3 other hunters show up, and those hunters all have gear that, you know, or one of the people that you're hunting with has gear that you have. Say you're a great sword user and you call in 3 people, and one of the people that comes in
is a
great sword user, then you can say, well, hold on, I'll be right back. I'll go to camp and I'll swap out and I'll pick up the bow gun or something.
If you're not good at the bow gun and you don't have any help and you're trying to get good, you might not use it because you don't want to fail the hunt. 3 people come in and they go, oh, yeah, go ahead, get the bow gun. You know, we'll back you up. We have your back.
In the context of the multiplayer, I think it makes sense. And I think it's going to make multiplayer more exciting because you can actively pursue other arms throughout that you wouldn't normally be doing when you have to saddle up beforehand, and you can't, once you're in, you can't swap out. And
I think even besides, though, putting weapons aside, I think the actual armor sets are more valuable to switch than weapons, because you could be fighting Angie.
Right.
Rathalos could come and maybe for whatever reason consistently bother you.
Yeah.
And you might have armor that is weak to fire. So you could go, oh, I can go back to camp. This armor is not as good than the current armor, but at least it resists fire.
Right.
Let me put that on.
And I think also what I'm trying to say is, it, especially in single player too, like it gives me more of a reason to play with other weapons than I would normally have, because it's so much of a hassle to, when you're on the hunt already and you've already picked your gear and you've picked your weapon, you're stuck with that. Now this gives you the ability to swap on the fly, and it might give me more of a reason and more of an incentive to care about those weapons, those other weapons that I wouldn't normally.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't want to swap out and do the hunt over again. I can actively pursue or use those or get better with those during the hunt, swap it out to something I'm better with, use that to finish the hunt, and that helps me kind of build those skills a little bit more.
We see the timer still in.
Yes.
So at one point it says 10 minutes left of the hunt during this video, and that's when they switch to the heavy bow gun.
Because they're like, I'm so bad at the greatsword.
I need the bow gun. A thing that you pointed out that I didn't notice, it seems that the sharpness bar is a meter now.
Right.
Or
it's no longer like
a gauge.
Previously it was gold when you were at max sharpness, and then it would slowly degrade, but it was a picture of a sword degrading rather than an actual bar, which I don't ever know why that was the case in the first place. It just makes so much more sense for it to be a gauge, and I'm pretty happy about that, especially as somebody who's mostly used a greatsword.
Of it getting duller.
Right.
So we know sharpening is still in. Assuming paintballs are gone?
I think so. We talked about this a little bit, and you seemed like you had some qualms about the tracking system and the paintballs disappearing. We don't know for sure that they're gone. We just know that they've said once you track the monster and the Scoutflies have it sent, then it's permanently tracked on your map.
Yeah, I think
I shouldn't say permanently, because we don't know that it'll
right.
fall
At
off,
least during this hunt, the monsters were tracked the entire time. So even when they went back to camp, there's like a little monster eye on the map of what they were tracking. So in this case, it was Angie.
Yeah.
And when they got closer to it, the number started at like 52 and then went down to 51 and then 50 as they got closer to it.
Yes.
And the Scoutflies also just kind of showed you they were like your GPS to get there. So why I was confused with the paintball is because when you found the monster, you paintballed it, and then everyone knows where it is because it's the little pink dot on your map.
Yeah.
And if you were too slow or the monster was giving you a tough time, and it moved to a different area and the paintball wore off, then you would have to do the hunt again of like, okay, let's all spread out. Let's try to figure out where it went, especially with the flying monsters like a Rathian.
Yeah.
Where it just doesn't pick a door to go through. It just gets up and leaves.
Yeah. Just out of there.
So I was saying that I liked I didn't mind. I don't think anyone would be like, oh, I love when the monster gets away.
I love having to use more paintballs throughout the hunt.
I don't think anyone's saying that, but I do think it's like, oh, all right, guys, let's like regroup. Let's find it again.
It feels like a level of realism.
Yeah, it feels like you're still hunting.
Yeah.
And if the Scoutflies are always tracking the monster, there's just never that conversation to be had. It's like, we found it once, we're never losing it.
Yeah.
I guess I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's just different.
I'm okay with it. I think I'm okay with it mostly because I'm so excited about what the hunt is and what leads you to having that, like, the permanent tracking or semi-permanent, whatever. I like the idea that you have to track footsteps and you have to track smells and you have to... The time that it takes to do that offsets the time that you would have to take in order to find it again and paintball it later. And I guess I'm thinking about, like, more endgame monsters, too. Like, I would assume that because this is the tutorial, they're finding it so quickly, they're tracking footsteps and they're tracking saliva or whatever, and then they find it, and it's tracked. But bigger, later game monsters, I would assume, are a lot harder to track or a lot harder to find, and it probably takes a little bit more time to find those. And I think that kind of offsets it ran and now we can't find it, and now we gotta go find it again. I think this sounds more fun, even though there's more time that you have to put into actively tracking it, rather than we just found it, paintball ran out, go find it again. This, to me, sounds more enjoyable.
Your character also has a hook shot, which lets you mount the monster or shoot up into the air and get out of there.
It's like an arm, cannon thing, like a multi-tool.
What I noticed two things. One is that there were 2 mounting points, at least on Angie, one on the back and one specifically on the tail.
Yep.
Which was first noticeable when they fell off and then hookshot back on.
Yeah. The
second is not only did they chop the tail off, they didn't carve it.
Whew.
They're like,
how painful that was to watch.
I was like, come on, I want to see I want to see the loot.
They don't want you to see those materials. Have we seen in any of it yet, the materials?
Yeah, when they carve at the end of this, you see two pelts and talon or a beak or something.
Gotcha.
Not a beak.
Something.
There is what are they calling it? The Ghillie Mantle? Is that the right word?
Yeah, so ghillie suits are like, that's a thing that actually exists.
What are they?
They're just like shrubbery and like leaves and whatever.
Oh,
like a sniper suit.
Deer hunters wear.
I don't know that deer hunters use those so much as like high level snipers.
Okay.
Use them.
There's a lot of dangerous
maybe, I guess.
There's a lot of dangerous deer out there.
Yeah, that's true.
Never be prepared.
It's just camouflage, basically. Okay. But that's one of the 3 confirmed so far.
Well, there's the You Can't See Me one.
Yep.
There's
Ghillie Mantle.
There's the Sharpshooter one.
Sharpshooter? Oh, the like steady hand
one.
Yep.
And then there was the I'm Very Sparkly one.
Yeah, the like taunt mantle. I don't remember what they called it.
So are you excited for future Monster Hunter play where somebody puts that suit on?
Absolutely.
And just runs and runs.
Destroys the hunt for everybody. And in fact, I can't wait to be the one to do it.
And I bet when they're wearing it, they probably have no clue what it's doing.
Yes.
And they are consistently moving the monster to areas you don't want the monster to be in. During the menu screen, when they're switching gear, and we're getting near the end of this episode, we do see that there are still weapon bonuses. So the weapon they're using has an elemental damage is lessened. We see sharpness and attack on the weapon. So, hey, this weapon's doing 159 damage, or maybe this weapon's doing 162. We still see affinity. So for those maybe still new to Monster Hunter, affinity is just critical hit.
Criticals.
We still see that there are elemental damage. It looks like you can mod weapons. There is a modding area for weapons. Tells you if you're...
Exciting.
It also gives you your defense and what your defense is against fire, against water, against thunder, ice, dragon. So everything's there when you're switching gear on the fly, which is just very exciting. And hopefully those menus are easy to read. As us two playing Monster Hunter so long, kind of got that system down.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to lie and say it wasn't confusing when I first looked at it.
Yeah, I think it looks a lot more user-friendly. I think the UI in general looks more user-friendly. I mean, I think it's primarily because they're looking to bring in new players for Monster Hunter that are used to more modern action RPGs. And this is one of the ways they're doing it, is it's a lot easier to look at. It's not as clunky of a UI. It's not as hard to read. It just feels like so much of a better experience so far. For new people, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
For pulling people in that wouldn't normally want to sit through the slog of like figuring out the menu and
having another flowchart up next to this flowchart.
Yes. I also noticed too that when they're being actively attacked by the monster, there's a red ring around the minimap in the bottom left corner that is either smaller or bigger, like brighter or duller, depending on how close they are to the monster or how.
I thought that was how angry the monster was.
Right. Yeah. That's what I think.
So it got like brighter red if it was enraged.
Right. And then when they mounted it, then it got huge and then kind of like popped and it was white around the minimap until they were off of it. But it's actively seeking you. You can tell it's actively seeking you, or it's I think targeting you maybe because of that ring.
Yeah, I would be curious if there was like four hunters.
Yeah.
If one person is like, oh, my ring is red, so it's focused on me, and then everyone else, they go, oh, ours is white.
I do know in the Japanese gameplay there were 4 people at one point. 3 hunters came in and helped the other person.
Did the stream show all 4 on?
It did, yeah. It alternated screens from time to time. And I don't remember specifically what it was. I don't think it was specifically the ring around the minimap, but there was something that indicated
who had aggro. Okay.
Yeah.
Aggro meaning just the monster's focus.
Yeah.
Just some other things before we wrap up. We saw that the Palico went on the hunt with the hunter. Just one Palico. One would assume that you can have up to 2 if you're solo. No confirmation if the Palicos leave if hunters come in, but that's how it's... Well, that's how it's always been, but if you're with more than one other person, you can't bring Palicos with.
Yeah.
They did carve the Anjanath at the end, and they got 3 things out of it, which seems to be the standard. I know in past games there was gear where you could get like a 4th carve out of it.
But they didn't carve the tail, and that's the important part.
Yeah, they never carved the tail. Now, that's the real bummer there. The one thing I noticed that seemed to be great is maybe past Monster Hunter games did this, but I couldn't see it. But when you get the completion, it's like 30 seconds to base. This game actually shows the countdown timer at the top.
Oh.
I don't ever remember for you doing that.
I don't recall that either. I just remember carve and then do some...
Carve and then like quickly carve or gather materials in other spots.
Yep.
Do you think that should be longer? Do you think 30 seconds is enough? Because sometimes you're on the other side of the map when the monster dies.
Well, that's your problem.
You got carted back.
You better hustle. Well, you got the wyverns that you can... I don't know what they're called. The little things that you can use to fly across the map.
I don't think they let you fly anywhere. I thought they just let you fly back to the base.
No, they let you fly places because you can fly. You use them to fly into a location when you're joining a hunt.
But then can you use them again?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, I don't know for sure, but we haven't seen much on them. But as far as I know, you can use them to fly places. You just can't use them when you're in combat. So, like, you can't just be like, oh, this is too much, and then jump on your, I don't know, pterodactyl and fly out of there.
I'm sure we're missing a bunch of things from this trailer.
Right.
We got future episodes to talk about that.
Yeah. And we can always, there's plenty of stuff too still that we can look over and go over, and maybe things that we weren't as sure on this time we can come back and talk about later.
I will probably watch this one more time or multiple times because it's a great showing of what this game is going to be.
Yeah.
But I think that will wrap it up. So, Twitter. If you're interested in following us on Twitter, you can do so. The podcast is at Carve Podcast on Twitter. So we'll be posting Monster Hunter news and when episodes are out on that Twitter. This is only our second episode, but if you like what we're doing, you can leave us a review in iTunes. It's kind of like the place for podcasts.
The podcast place.
If you could leave us a review in iTunes or Google Play or Stitcher or wherever you're listening to this, it would be greatly appreciated because it helps other people find the show easier. And
it's affirming for us. It makes us feel good.
It makes us feel good, yeah. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at Dragging a Lake. If you want to follow Micah on Twitter, it is at Micah the Brave.
That's Micah, because I know that sometimes people have trouble with that.
Yeah.
Throughout my entire life.
I think otherwise that's the show, so keep on hunting those monsters.
And keep on carving those monsters.